Hey everyone, Dwayne here from Townshend Lights. You may also know me from the Tinsel Tunes podcast and the Christmas in New Zealand Facebook page. So I thought I would do a quick walkthrough of the 2020 Christmas season. One, so I can look back on this next year and get all my settings correct again, and two, you might pick something up from it as I run a Wi-Fi display which can be a little bit more troublesome than a regular display. So hopefully you might pick up some tricks and tips, and so let's get on with it. Here on the laptop with X-Lights, it then sends the information through to Xscheduler, and Xscheduler will then control the display for the year. I did actually set up a Raspberry Pi, but it actually gave up the ghost a week before we were due to go live, so I had to resort back to the laptop, and it worked out really well. So I'm not sure if I'll go to the Raspberry Pi next year, but we'll see what happens. So once the sequence is playing, I have that hooked up through the Ethernet to the access point, and the audio is coming directly out of the laptop out into a speaker outside. So both those cables go through and get fed out of a hole in the corner of the door, and I'll show you where they go. And the whole display and the laptop are all protected by a surge protector off one jack point here in the corner. Alright, so let's go and have a look outside. So the display runs 15 of these little D1 Mini ESP8266 chips. So I'll show you those in action as well. So first of all, I'll just show you the wiring. So out the hole in the wall, so to speak, comes up, and the black one is the audio and the white one is the Ethernet, and they run all the way up through, up into here and into the router. I'll give you a close-up look of that. So the laptop is connected up through to this access point. So it's not a router, it's an access point, and then that sends the signal wirelessly out to those little chips. So beside it are such chips. So these are the ones that are on the house. So we've got the controller for the peak, the star, the eaves, kitchen window, dining window, and the veranda. And the whole house is powered up through this 12 volt HP server power supply, which sends 12 volts out through the fuses into the lights. And then one of the lines that comes off goes into, I think you can see it there, a buck converter, which converts that line down to 5 volts, which then powers up the controllers. And these guys, they just plug it in out. So the way I've wired them, I've just put 3 chips, 3 pins, and then they come on and they then line up and push straight in, like so. And it's just hot glued. I actually had to unhook that one for a reason, so I haven't put it back on for the season. I'll do that later. And the idea with that is I can quickly change them out if I had to, which you can see the one with the S doesn't have a sticker on it because I did actually have to change that one out, and there's the old one just sitting to the side. So that's the power supply for that. Everything is fused, and then what happens there is this gets turned on and off with a timer down bottom, which I'll show you shortly, whereas the access point stays live for the whole month. And so what happens there is, out of these two here, one comes straight up and is live for the access point, and the other one is turned on and off with the timer, which, if I can get down off here without tripping up, it's down here. So the power comes out of the house into here, like so. It's then split 2 ways. One, it splits into that timer, and then that goes out and into the various spots of the display, and one of them that's split off is live all the time, and it goes up to the access point, and that turns itself, the timer turns on at 6 o'clock at night, where I can do some testing with the show starts at 8:30, and then it turns itself off at midnight, so I can go to bed early and the show will look after itself. Right, so let's go on to Megatree. So there's the back of the Megatree. My wife said we should always paint it. One day we will. So that down there is a controller. That's one of the controllers. That's the one for the Megatree. And if we go all the way up to the top, then there's a controller for this pinwheel star. as I call it. And then over here is another power supply. This is the one from a computer which has 12 volts, 5 volts and 3 volts. I'm utilizing both the 12 volts because the lights on the star are 12 volts, whereas the tree and the candy canes are 5 volts. And everything once again is fused, which is just there, and then inside there is another controller for the candy canes. And I run power over here, and each day I have to hook it into here because we need to open the gate on a daily basis, like so, to get into it. But that isn't much of a problem. So the lights for the Mega Tree are 5 volts, and they used to be white, and of course they fade, which is fine. And there's the 12 volt pinwheel. So there is 1224 nodes on this tree, and it's all power supplied down at the bottom, all power injected, and it's the data goes up one and then to the other, down into that one, up into the other, down, and so forth. But the power injection is all done down at the bottom, and the earth. Don't forget to power inject the earth as well. And over here we have the candy canes. So the candy canes are homemade. It was going to cost way too much and take way too much time to get them in from Boscoyo because they're in the States. So I got some cool float. We only have the thin stuff, like so. See if I can focus. And then I've wired them up following the instructions on X lights. And the fact that I got red, I don't know why, I just thought it was a good idea at the time. Faded extremely quickly, but that's okay. These are 5 volts as well, and they have turned out great. People absolutely love them. They haven't, because we're here in New Zealand and this sort of display isn't huge, there's a few in the country, people have absolutely fallen in love with them. So we've had a lot of good comments and a lot of good feedback. So over here we have the arches. We have 4 of those. They're 2 meters in length, so there's 60 nodes per one. Once again, it's just done with strips and power injected at the middle one. So I've got power injection in the middle and power injection at the very end. So I've got no degrading in colour. I've had to use a feeder tube, an air feeder tube, and unfortunately when I bought them off the shelf in 2 meter lengths, the last one was slightly yellow. So sometimes you can see that discoloration when the display is running. But I couldn't be picky, I didn't have much to choose from. We don't have PEX tubing in a way that you can get it easily over here. Right, back up the driveway. Let me just close this gate so the dog doesn't get out. So as mentioned, power comes off the switch and into this, and as you can see I've just used some steamer or Tupperware style containers because they're all waterproof. So this one supplies power to the North Pole canes, and then also over to another control box which is in that corner. So I'm just going to take this off and show you what's inside. Right, so here's what's inside these North Pole globes. They're basically just I think they're 16 pixel rings, and inside the actual body, which you can't see, are the D1 Mini controllers, and it keeps them all waterproof. And to date I didn't have to get into there and do anything technically minded in regards to maintenance, and so yeah, they went really well. I suppose I could have done it some other ways, but I saw these cheaply on one of our auction sites called Trade Me, similar to eBay and whatnot, and I think they were only like $7 each. So I got 2 of them in. There's for that one, and the one up for that one, which I'll come back to. So I'll just put this back together, like so, just like magic. Okay, moving on. Loud birds. Down here we have a controller and power supply. So there is once again another computer power supply that runs 5 volts and 12 volts. So I'm only running 5 volts off this one because that's what is in the arches. And also supplies power to the speaker and the audio that comes in from down the fenceway through into here and then out into the speaker as well. So nothing too special about this. Once again, little D1 Mini, and it's all fused. Right. So at the moment, audio-wise, I was just running a Bluetooth speaker. That was just running it in 3.5mm mode, not Bluetooth, and it did a decent job. Though next year I'm going to do something a bit more permanent, because this requires charging every day to keep it up and running, as well as being plugged in through the show so it doesn't go flat. Okay, on the other side of the garden we have another power supply. This is just 2 cell phone chargers, because they're only powering up one string of nodes in the tree. They're just 5 volts, and also powering up the same RGB ring inside there, as well as 3 individual pixels that light up the North Pole Road sign. And all I did there was just run those as a separate model. Right, over onto the house. So I have the house outlined with 12 volt 2811 strips. So I have the peak, the windows. Now, don't shoot me, but this was done last year as a test, and I left them that way. I've basically just waterproofed them with hot glue and stuck them directly to the framework. We are going to be redoing our frames this year, so we decided since they needed redoing, it wouldn't hurt just to stick them on to get the job done, and I can put them on proper framework through the year for next year. So they are 2811 12 volt pixels, and the matrix here, I only finished that in late November. That's 5 volt, and there is 1224 individual nodes, and so it's made up of 34 strips of 36 pixels, and it behaved extremely well. I was quite impressed as to how late I got it built, as to the lack of technical difficulties I had with it. I'll show you the power supply to that shortly. Down here we have what we call the bulbs, which are 6 light shades, one turned on top of the other and screwed together to make bulbs, and there's homemade sort of tops to make them look like they would hang off a Christmas tree. Inside, which is really hard to tell, I'll see if I can line the camera up. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is, in fact, I'll turn that over. So the controller is in, once again, is in a weatherproof box, and if you can see it, there we go. So there's just some strips that hang down, they're double-sided, and there's, I think there's 30 nodes in each one, and then they light up accordingly. They are powered through the little cell phone charger, once again 5 volts, didn't need to be too powerful, and the matrix is powered off another computer supply running 5 volts only, so I didn't utilize the 12 volts. Once again, everything is fused, and power injection is coming up as well, and everything is wired up and power injected from the left hand side. And like I say, worked really well. The power supply is not normally on this side, it's normally hanging on the other side. I just did that for the ease of recording. Right, I'm going to stand back and show you the roof. I'm not going to get up there. So we've got lights on the eaves. I'll do a nighttime shot very shortly so you can see the eaves. And then we hit the star. So the star is once again 12 volt WD, 2811 pixels, and they are cable tied onto a metal framework. I've had that now for probably close to a decade, and this is the first year that I did proper LED strips on them. Once again, it worked really well, and you can't see it, but there's also, if I can do it this way, running up the peak is the same 12 volt 2811 pixels. Right, well, believe it or not, that's it. It's just a short video. If you have any questions, sing out. In fact, what I might do is actually we'll go inside in front of the computer and I'll see what I can show you in regards to the controller programming and the Wi-Fi. Right, and here we go. So we're in X-Lite, so just basically to give you a quick look, I've done everything as multicast, and the universals all line up as well as the channels. I've got no empty channels and no empty universes. So essentially what I did there is, in the case of the veranda, which is one universe, is the universe is the exact size of the amount of pixels that there are. And in regards to, say, the arches, which are 2 universes, each universe was split up to 354 channels per universe. And therefore there's no wasted channels and no wasted universe space. The only thing that I can't figure out, and I'm not sure if it's because I've done something wrong, though the display works perfectly fine, is when I click on any of these, it doesn't give me any options down here except for delete. The models are all lining up, so I don't know if that's a multicast issue, because I used to run multicast, which means I could come through here and upload separate things to the or separate bits of information to the controllers, whereas this time it doesn't want to do that. I'll show you also, so there's X schedule, so I have 2 5-minute shows that run. In fact, let's open up that one. So I have over pre-show, which lasts 2 minutes. I have 2 mixes, I just call them part 1 and part 2, and then I have a short TARDIS one, that because I thought the TARDIS materializing on the Mega Tree looked pretty awesome, so I made that into a short one. Being that it's Ethernet connected, it always maintains the same IP address. When I was connecting the laptop to the router, the access point wirelessly, that kept changing, and I had a lot of issues with lag or buffering. So once I went to the Ethernet, that disappeared. Back onto here, so I can also, I use this feature a lot in Xscheduler, the not so big buttons, and what I've done there is I've given myself a volume down and a volume up. So I can be outside and using a phone or a tablet, which is running Xlight's web scheduler, I can control the volume while I'm out the front as well. I will quickly go into my router. So I'm just going to go like this for a second. There we go. So through here, it's pretty basic. This is a D-Link DAP 2690. Like I say, it is running multicast, so it has its own, I've left it on 2.4, and I messed around with the channel configuration for a bit. Being that I'm in a cul-de-sac, my display was getting swamped on some channels. So for myself, channel 11 gives me the least amount of interference from other channels. This part took me forever to work out, and once again, thank you to the guys at the Do-It-Yourself Christmas forums, which helped guide me through what I needed to go through here. So these are the best settings for my display, and they may be for yours. But I set the beacon level at 100. I had it at 25, thinking that was a good thing. Turned out it wasn't. It was causing some buffering. And the short GI defaults to enabled, so I've left it there. I've turned off the IGMP snooping in favor of selecting a multicast rate, which in this case was 9 megabits per second. Anything higher than that, the controllers would basically get swamped, and anything lower than that, and they would lag behind. So 9 appears to be the proper size for me. Other than that, it's all DHCP, so each unit assigns its the router assigns an IP for each controller, and I have the least time on 13 days. It was just the default, so I've left it the way it is. And eventually I got the display working 98% perfect. There's a slight lag at times, but not that most people would notice. Only us that do it would probably notice that there's a little bit of a lag, mainly on the Mega Tree and the Matrix, because I'm pushing the channels and the universes on those to the maximum, being that on Wi-Fi. I'm running an ESP pixel stick, so I'm going to show you my settings for the ESP pixel sticks on the controllers. So I'm just going to stop the video for a sec, go and turn the controllers on, and then we'll log in and show you what I've set. Right, so here we have one of the controllers with the ESP pixel stick software loaded onto it. I'm not using the actual pixel sticks, these are just D1 minis with the software on. So This is for the matrix, and to give you an idea, I had to program these separately to X-Lights. X-Lights for some reason wouldn't upload the configuration, so I had to do these separately. So I had to tell the universe range was from 23 to 30. The source IP is normally set as per the laptop, as opposed to the IP unset. Don't know why that's there. In the wireless setup, you put in your regular password. I'm just going to go like this, so you can't see it essentially. All you have to do is select use DHCP in that setting, as well as your wireless username and password. That's pretty straightforward on that one. There we go. On the device setup, I give it all a name. In this case it's matrix. I've told it it's universe 23, start channel 1, and universe boundary 459, and that's per universe. So if you had, I didn't do 510 for one universe. I basically did the exact amount of pixels that becomes what the universe is. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not sure, but it just works. So I've left it the way it is. Ticked enable multicast, and then from there, everything is pretty much standard except for the color order. I've had to change, because I'm running 5 volts and 12 volts. Some of them needed to be RGB and some of them needed to be GRB. So that's pretty straightforward through there. Brightness, I do the brightness at controller level. So instead of being 1 for the maximum controller, the matrix runs at just under half, or 40%. So it's a 0.4. If it was, I tried doing this with a 4 and a 3 without the 0, and the brightness wasn't changing until I figured it out. Or actually it's 1.0 is the brightness, so anything less than that would adjust it. So 0 point something will adjust your brightness. That wasn't anywhere in any documentation. I found that out by mistake, basically by reading the screen. Then I thought, oh, hang on, it's a 1.0 is maximum, so I changed that, and so the matrix runs at 40%. The effects, I just use these for testing. You don't have them on any other time. Diagnostics I've never used, and of course in admin you do have the reboot, and I'll probably do a firmware update if a new one comes out next year in time for the next display. One thing I quite liked about this software is when you click on the home tab, because it gives you all the information about your IP address of the unit and whatnot. It'll also give you your strength as well in decibels, and so I found that quite handy. I always get sequence errors. I don't get any packet errors. Apparently sequence errors is quite normal, though once again, unless I was nitpicking down to the few frames that get dropped, or a little bit of lag that's there every now and then, it's not something I worried about. Alright, so I think that's covered everything. So what I'll do now, we'll just run a bit of the nighttime display so you can see what it looks like at night time as opposed to during the day. Alright, well thank you for watching the video. If you've got any questions, throw them in the comments below.
Let's get this party started.
Christmas, Christmas, Christmas.
Well, it's Christmas time, pretty baby, and the snow is falling on the ground.